Welcome to the SecurityDNA podcast powered by SecurityInfoWatch. This is your front line for bold insights and real intelligence that cuts through the noise and gets straight to what matters most. I'm Samantha Schober, assistant editor of SecurityInfoWatch and the producer of today's episode. At SecurityInfoWatch, we deliver sharp, real-time insights into the biggest challenges facing security and risk professionals today. From emerging threats to game-changing technologies, we go beyond the headlines to provide expert analysis, real-world strategies, and critical risk intelligence, giving you the knowledge you need to stay ahead in this rapidly evolving landscape. My colleague, SIW Editor-in-Chief Rodney Bosch, is bringing Everon CEO Don Young to the discussion table, so let's get started. Don Young is an industry veteran with over 4 decades of experience in security and life safety. He began his career in the U.S. Air Force as a computer programmer analyst and has since served in several executive and C-suite leadership roles across multiple prominent security providers, including ADT, Stanley Security, and Protection One. He also previously served as president of Honoring Association from 2019 to 2021 and is currently on SIA's board of directors, as well as an active member of the UL Standards and Engagement Technical Committee. So with that, let's turn it over to Rodney.
Don, thanks so much for joining me today. It's wonderful to have you.
Great to be here, Rodney.
So in this conversation, we're going to be talking to Don about his vision for Everon, how he's navigating leadership transitions, and what's next for the company. We'll also tap into his decades of experience in the industry to explore key trends shaping integration business, from emerging technologies and workforce development to the shifting expectations of today's commercial security customers. Don, I'd like to start just with the big picture, man. What drew you to Everon at this stage in your career, and what excites you most about the opportunity?
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. Well, it's, great to be on this podcast. And for me, it's been a heck of a journey. Came to ADT through Protection One. The equity firm Apollo asked us, the management team at Protection One, if we had the interest in taking ADT private, kind of the guppy in the whale moment. And Tim Wall and a bunch of us said, yeah, sign us up. And last 9 years have been a heck of a journey over there. But when ADT sold the commercial business in 2023, October 2023, I was quite frankly jealous. I was the chief operating officer at the time over at ADT, and I was in charge of the residential side of the business. And when I saw that commercial business break away, a large part of that business was the Protection One company that I had come from, and that I had helped build with Tim Wall and others. So I always had this bit of envy not being able to go with that business, but kept my head down and going forward until eventually Tim, currently our chairman, stepped in as the interim CEO earlier in 2025. I think it was January, and then I began some dialogue with my previous boss, Jim DeVries, the CEO of ADT, about maybe an appetite for me to leave ADT and really kind of become the bride after all these years of being a bridesmaid, given this is my first job as a CEO. So Jim and I worked out my departure, and I started on June 9th. My last day at ADT was June 6th, so no breaks in between. And I came in day one really just being able to leverage a lot of the momentum that Tim had built in the business. I mean, there's a formula I'd like to believe that Tim and I have followed on all of our prior deals together. And just to be clear, Tim and I have, we worked together at SecurityLink, ADT after that, HSM after that, Stanley, Protection One, and eventually ADT together. So Tim has been my adult life mentor. And our formula has always worked very well in our prior companies that we worked for. And it was really just from day one, no matter what new company we started with, to go ahead and keep that customer true north. And I know a lot of people will go ahead and say that, but our approach to making the customer true north is a combination of first identifying the pain points that the customers are suffering, or maybe even opportunities that they're not able to enjoy, and then delivering on fixing those pain points or delivering the upside of those opportunities with a more optimized, operationally effective approach. Not just give the customer whatever they want at any cost, or at the expense of any disruption to the business. And I really enjoyed, the things that Tim and I have been able to do, the things we've learned, the things that we've brought to bear here at Everon, with how to go ahead and deploy those optimized fixes or those optimized upsides for the customer. And then part and parcel to that, maybe even more important than that, is just building the culture within the organization itself to be accountable to every customer interaction. It's I don't know if this is a surprise or not for your listeners, but there's a lot of companies that just kind of hang up the phone, finish the email, thinking that it's a closed loop communication on their part of the world with the customer, and the customer is left hanging, not knowing where to go next. And Tim and I have always worked very hard to instill a culture of accountability and empowerment. And people, they has been my experience that they always migrate towards that ownership or that accountability if they're given the right amount of empowerment to deliver on the promise that they're making to the customer. And I've only been here a short 2 months. Like I said, I got 5 months ahead of me from Tim, but we really have some significant cultural changes going on in this organization with the way that we think about the customer, the way we're doing closed loop communications with our customers, the way that we're setting and meeting expectations, and making sure that we're keeping each other's promises. We all know the ops is meant to keep the sales promises, but this is more than that. This is, like I said, a cultural thing. And I'm just loving, like I said, the momentum I inherited. I'm really just trying to turn the dial up on speed a bit from that momentum.
Well, I could report a complete dissertation on the Tim Wall Don Young formula, but we'll stick to what you're doing at Everon right now. Don, you stepped into this role at a time when Everon is already a major national player. What's your immediate focus, in like the next 90 or 180 days, and where do you see the biggest opportunities for impact?
Well, the biggest opportunities for impact, other than what I just mentioned with the customer True North, is there's some technology innovation available to us. AI goes without saying. There's generative AI, but then there's agentive AI that is going to be part of our landscape going forward. It's not now, and the company hasn't had a chance to really go deep in it. But I've got some really solid experience from where I just came from regarding its effectiveness, and though I would say the industry as a whole is woefully behind leveraging AI, and I don't just mean security integrators. I mean, unfortunately, our law enforcement agencies or municipalities, we're not ready yet to accept an agentive experience with an automated dispatch, but we're all headed in that direction. And I see opportunity here at Everon for us to leverage that, whether it's in our call center, whether it's in our sales or marketing process. There's lots of cost-saving opportunities and revenue synergy opportunities inside of that technology. And I intend to leverage every bit of it with some of my own prowess from where I came from, but also the advantage I have in working with some colleagues of mine. My CTO recently announced I've been working with for 15 years. My CIO I've been working with for 20 years. There's this absolute comfort zone I have being a technologist myself, working with these other technologists to go in and build some of these things that we know we're meant to leverage. So that's a little bit more internally to our organization and how we're meant to optimize and deliver capabilities to our customers. A little bit more externally is video. Everyone obviously is heavily invested in video, but what I don't think as many people are as vested in is how to leverage the video. Whether again it's with artificial intelligence or analytics, whether it's with integrated solutions. There's a lot of capabilities of video, especially with the metadata that comes with it, to go in and deliver a more robust response to the customer, especially in the event of an alarm. Situational awareness is everything. It's everything to the customer. It's everything to law or police and fire. It's helping our first responders stay safer while at the same time being able to give our customers peace of mind. So I see a lot of good work ahead for us to do in the video space. And then the other parts of our business that's meant to play a role, especially integrated solutions.
Okay. Definitely wanted to delve into some of the technology later in the discussion. As you look beyond this transition period, how are you thinking about building long-term operational resilience in a strong unified culture, at a company the size of Everon's, size and scope?
Well, it's definitely cultural. You've got to go ahead and empower your people to go ahead and deliver these promises that you're expecting them to make to our customers. And it can't just be words. You have to go ahead and explain to people what they're able, to do or not be able to do on behalf of a customer. Whether an alarm agent is able to make a commitment to a service call being performed within 24 hours. That's an effective and important promise that you need to go ahead and, as a company, decide: are you going to give that power to that alarm agent at that moment in time when they're talking to the customer? And then, of course, if you don't keep the promise, what's the point to begin with? But we're strong. We're strong believers, and we're very committed to empowering all of our people to go and set those kind of expectations with our customers. And we're inventing new expectations with our customers all the time, with the way that we're trying to, offer customized services to our customers and deliver value, at least in the minds of the customer, not in our minds and what we've traditionally sold. But if I was to pick one word, Rodney, to represent what we're trying to build inside of the culture of our workforce, it's that empowerment culture, and everyone having each other's back.
Okay. So, Don, everyone's gone through a number of leadership changes in recent months, and obviously including at the top. How are you approaching this period of transition, to ensure consistency for employees and customers, your partners? How do you keep that kind of internal change from, becoming a distraction to the company's outward momentum?
Well, I mean, it starts with just building trust first with your teammates, then cascading that trust downward in the organization, being consistent with your strategic messaging. I'd like to say I've been a bit over communicative, perhaps. It's really important to me that the company understands the mission, and the mission is no different than what Tim started, like I said, about 5 months before I came on board. Customers true north. Find out what the customer needs, deliver closed loop communications, meet those expectations. So the way you get through change is being consistent with your strategic messaging, empowering the people going to deliver on the tactics of that strategic messaging, and then setting expectations for your teammates or your employees on how they're meant to go and look forward to the future. It could be career pathing inside the organization. We promote internally 50% of our workforce, or 50% of our promotions are from our internal workforce. That's an important message to make sure people, grasp and understand that this is a place where you can grow. This is a place where you can go ahead and build the future with. And we're fortunate to have 5,000 plus employees that create a lot of that opportunity, both in the leadership structure and on the front line. And I've always been a huge fan of cultivating, this process where someone starts at the front line, they put in their time, they learn something else outside of their swim lane, and then they begin to kind of blossom towards either leadership opportunities or promotional opportunities. And I very much intend to go ahead and sponsor that here at Everon, and I just got to go and make the employees believers in that.
Okay, thank you. So, Don, more broadly, how do you see the role of the security integrator evolving today, especially with increasing customer demand for, managed services, interoperability? real-time visibility?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do, Rodney, with the seamless approach that companies hopefully take to go in and integrating solutions for the customer. Customers are, probably for a long time now, they've been frustrated by having to buy an intrusion system from one vendor and a fire system from another vendor and a card access from a third vendor, and and even if they had suffered in the past having to buy those systems from three different vendors or three separate solutions, they're frustrated further by not being able to combine them. And certainly they're meant to be combined. They're meant to be leveraged together. All the data sources that anyone in this industry is meant to use to go in and again increase that situational awareness. Um, it's important, I think, when you're working with an integrator to know how to put those different separate isolated components together. Customers are demanding it, and really that's where we shine. We shine in bringing to the customer's attention what the possibilities are to go in and integrate their existing solutions or build new solutions that will go in and offer integration opportunities down the road. But 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 for sure, you have all these data collecting assets at the premise that are meant to work together to provide a more optimized situational awareness for whatever the situation might be. It might be a response to an alarm. It just might be a convenience. It might be a business solution, like in the case of point of sale systems. There's just a lot of value that will be exponentially more than what it is today from isolated systems when you're able to integrate them together. And I'm really excited on how well Everon already does that. I'm excited on how much more opportunity there is for us to do it better.
Don, you touched on some of the technologies that are catching your eye. Generative AI is coming. That's going to be a thing. So I want to move the conversation back toward technology and what you believe are genuinely moving the needle for commercial security right now, and which trends are kind of still more hype than reality.
Um, yeah, I mean, again, video is, I think video is going to play and continue to play an expanded role, and all the solutions that were meant to go in and install in a more traditional fashion. I think fire and sprinkler are very much traditional, approaches to technology deployment. Video is almost limitless in my mind, not because of the video itself and the analytics that we've already been used to for years, but the data that's embedded in that video that's meant to be a source to all kinds of AI integrated capabilities down the road. As far as the hype part, I wouldn't say anything is overly hyped, especially with my appetite of towards technology. But something maybe that's worth a comment, Rodney, is drones and robotics. I think 10 years ago there was an expectation that they would have done more inside of our space by now, and they haven't, and maybe for good reason. Maybe FAA restrictions or who knows what. But I've never given up hope that those are going to have significant impacts on this business in the future. It just hasn't come as fast as I would have expected by now. But listen, we've got plenty of opportunity and work to do inside of the AI space. There's a lot of debate about cloud, prem, hybrid. I think most of the answers I seem to be hearing about on podcasts. I think you just had a podcast a week ago on AI and cloud prem. I think hybrid's the right answer right now. But yeah, I think for a company to be competitive and be able to have a chance to differentiate, you have to go in and entertain all three, especially if you're going to appease the customer's infrastructure and leverage it appropriately. And that's what we're investing in.
You mentioned robotics, Don. Everon has previously promoted the development and use of robotics in security applications, and I'm just curious, where do you see that type of technology fitting into the company's strategy, today?
Yeah, I would say, I would say we're doing a bit of a reset on that one, Rodney. I know, again, I haven't had a chance to really understand why it hasn't taken off inside of Everon, let alone anywhere else. I just know that we've de-emphasized that intentionally to try to go ahead and double down or re-emphasize in a much bigger way on video. That's really where we're going to be spending a lot of our innovative muscle in the next 6 to 12 months on maximizing what the potential of video has inside of all of our solutions, but particularly inside of our integrated solution space.
And that's not just security. I presume that has to do a lot with business efficiencies and as well.
100%. Right now, we're about half, core commercial and half national accounts. We had a pretty remarkable run there at Protection One with national accounts that were starting to get some of that traction and momentum behind us now here at Everon. And I see video playing a huge role in continuing that momentum.
Okay. So robotics taking a back seat, maybe that's not the right term. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but moving on from robotics, are there other emerging technologies you believe are, better suited for the commercial environment?
Perhaps there are, but Rodney, it's for me, it's less about the prem, other than the integrated part of the solutions that we're installing. I think the real upside opportunity is how we're meant to go and interact with first responders. That the technology that's used to interact with those first responders is very, unfortunately, antiquated. And there's a lot of players that are trying to corner the market, if you will, on how we're meant to interact with first responders. Especially getting rid of the human in the equation. But delivering the payloads to those first responders in a very different way than we've done historically, that's where I see some opportunity that commercial companies, if they're not already vested in learning what that is or what that could be or what it should be, then they should get to work. Because I'm not saying we're on the cusp of something big there, but everyone that I talk to inside the industry space, all the association work I've done, we're getting close to a place where you're going to be either a have or a have not, and I'm going to take all my experience and make sure that we're a member of the have club.
Okay, all right, great. Don, consolidation's a big deal in the industry, in the channel. You've led through multiple private equity partnerships. What do you think integrators, especially mid-sized firms, maybe small, should understand about operating under or alongside PE ownership?
Well, it's about value. I mean, certainly they have to be profitable and they have to pay their bills. That goes without saying. Hopefully, they don't need coaching on that one. But the growth is different from one company to the next, and you have to be very deliberate on how you're going to go after that growth. And the ways I've always been deliberate about growth is what separates me from my competition. Why is a customer going to go ahead and buy my project for the same price, over my competitor's project at the same price? So, I hopefully that's not new news to any of your listeners, but being able to go ahead and identify how you're meant to differentiate. By the way, differentiation could be something as simple as local service. Being able to convince your prospects or your customers that the level of service that you deliver locally is, worth, what you're not able to go ahead and deliver from a technology innovative standpoint or on a national scale or something of that nature. But everyone's got to go ahead and really lock in on what differentiates them from the competition, and then, make sure that they optimize their approach to doing it.
Kind of jumping around here a little bit, Don, you've been active. I know association work is a big deal for you and always has been. You've been active in industry groups like PPVAR and monitoring us, TMA and obviously SIA. What do you see as the most important areas for industry-wide collaboration or standard setting in the next few years?
The UL and everyone at UL knows this. They've got some catching up to do on getting their standards to go ahead and reflect the technologies that are available today, whether it's communication technologies or detection technologies. They're drinking through a fire hose trying to just keep up with what can be done in the cloud that they didn't have UL standards around just a few short years ago. So, so I have some sympathy for them while they're trying to go ahead and keep up with the times on what technology is able to offer versus what kind of standards should be put on top of that technology for insurance purposes. But I have huge hopes and huge expectations for how we're meant to go ahead and pull everyone along towards humanless dispatch, and that doesn't mean without very serious concerns about what is or is not a false alarm, what does or does not deserve the attention of a first responder. I see a world where there's going to be a standard. There already is right now with AVS-01, a standard which defines the priority of alarm. I mean, for years, Rodney, if you remember, it was heresy to go ahead and talk about prioritizing an alarm. No. If it's an alarm, you just hand it to law enforcement and let them decide what to do with it. And some places they hit the gas pedal, and other places they don't respond at all. I mean, that's just the way it goes. I've been part of that journey to change that dynamic. I'd like to say, evangelical about the need to prioritize alarms, and not just to go to remove false alarms, from the equation, but to go in and give our first responders that situational awareness they need on what they're walking into when they get to the front door of the premise. I mean, it's important to know, what's going on inside that building before they start pointing their gun in different places. And that's always been in the DNA of a lot of colleagues of mine that I've worked side by side with in the industry to promote this, more enhanced situational awareness through more robust data, through delivery of that data in a more effective and frictionless way to the 911 operator or the first responder. And I think that there's some technologies out there that are doing that much better than they used to in the past, but could still do it much better in the future. And ultimately just deliver a faster, more reliable response for every customer.
Don, sticking on that topic of industry participation in state associations and stuff, in your national presence, do you come in contact with your some industry brethren that really have no involvement in their local and state associations? And I'm just wondering if you have a word to your industry brethren, that the importance of being a part of associations and working together in a collaborative way, not just within the industry ranks, but also with law enforcement and stuff.
Yeah, so for me personally, Rodney, I've never had a lot of involvement at the state level. It's always been more at the national level. The organizations I'm part of are all, both past and present, are all national. But regardless of whether it's state or national, the way I try to motivate people to volunteer or participate is, number one, very selfish. Okay, you're going to want to be aware of what your competition, is up to and what they're doing and how they're leveraging standards or leveraging, things that are happening at an industry level. Perfect example, ASAP to PSAP. I think you're familiar with that over at TMA.
Yeah.
That platform was built so its members can go ahead and communicate without making a phone call, and pertinent information in 911. It was a wonderful, still is a wonderful technology for alarm companies and industry veterans or industry participants to leverage. But there are a lot of companies that took no interest in that. They don't see the dispatch processes, being of that incremental value over ASAP to PSAP, and that's their choice. But you have to at least learn what you're up against when you're going to these association events or learning what these associations are trying to build on behalf of its members. So I just think at a minimum, people need to volunteer just to understand what the competition is up to. You should absolutely be aware of what the best practices are, and what my attorney or what every attorney that's told me over the years you need to be mindful of, and that's the standard of care. The standard of care is usually what everyone else is doing. So you don't want to be doing less than that in case something goes wrong and you end up in court. And more often than not, you'll understand better what that standard of care is when you understand the standards and the way that other colleagues in the industry are performing the service. That's what you gain in terms of knowledge when you attend state, national, whatever organizations where everyone shares best practices and shares what the normal is. And then the last part, Rodney, is just the technology that's being made available to our industry. That's beyond, call it just the customer prem, meaning the technology that's meant to interact with law enforcement or fire or who knows what other governmental agency you have to interact with to perform your end-to-end service. All those interactions with those government agencies to deliver the full end of your service, those are all very much influenced by the associations and what they do. And whether you want to be part of shaping that or whether you want to just make sure you're aware of it, I think that's incredibly important. That's how I would convince someone to at least volunteer and learn.
So as we kind of reach the end of our conversation, this sort of a personal level question. Some few years ago, I was at California Alarm Association Winter Convention in San Francisco, and I had a chance to talk with Tim Wall from the stage. It was just a Q&A like we're discussing here. And one of the things that he wanted to relate to the audience was work-life balance and what's important in life. And I'm just curious if you can talk a little bit. You've taken on some really big leadership roles throughout your career. Now you're leading a major national integrator. How do you approach work-life balance, and what have you learned over the years about staying grounded while, navigating these high-pressure roles?
Well, it invites a conversation, Randy, that could take more than a couple minutes, but I'm going to try to give you the brief version. I was diagnosed with a brain tumor in 2008. Fortunately, it was benign, but it took me a good full year to recover from that. And when I learned through that process, through all my, call it, side effects, is the fear I have of irrelevance, because there was a moment where that could have been my situation, and it's frankly, it's just scared me ever since. So I have a very, maybe unlike others or most, I have a very healthy appreciation for having the opportunity to be relevant. And I don't see my job as work. I know that sounds maybe crazy to some, but for me, it's almost like solving a puzzle or problem solving. I just enjoy it. I look every day for things in my inbox to go in and chase after and get after and help people solve them and provide direction and leverage my experience and intellect. I enjoy doing that. It gives me, anyway. So the only thing I have to balance all of that with is the relationship with my wife and my family. And I do the best I can there. And she's very, very supportive and very accommodating. I actually married a woman who I worked with at HSM, so she has an intimate familiarity with the kind of work I do, the passion I have for the work I do, and really just the nature of what this industry requires of leaders. So I'm blessed to have that as part of my work-life balance. But yeah, I come to work and I go home and I'm probably just as happy in either place.
Well, I'm thinking now I have a new podcast idea: security industry relations.
Oh,
Relationship. Yeah, promising. Yeah, there's got to be an idea there. And of course, you and your wife are the first guests. So,
yeah, well, she'll be a colorful guest. I can promise you that.
oh, all right. Well, we'll see if we can make that happen.
All right.
So, and finally, what advice would you give to emerging leaders, in integration space, who want to position their companies and themselves for long-term success in the industry?
I kind of the general question, Rodney, like, what would you advise others who are who have ambition and who want to grow and succeed. The formula for me was find a winner as your sponsor. This might not be the ideal answer for your audience, but I was really lucky to go ahead and ride Tim's coattails all these years. He wins at everything, and I don't mean to embarrass him with my response here, but that was just lucky for me. I've worked hard to earn his confidence and his trust, and it was easy to go ahead and do that work because I knew it was going into a place that was going to get me the places I wanted to go to. So, and I have sympathy for people who are tremendous performers and work their butts off for unfortunately a sponsor that isn't going in the same places that they're going to, and you have to make that call. It's a tough call to make when someone maybe cares about you personally but isn't professionally as capable as you are, and you gotta make that judgment call when to stop investing and start investing into someone else. But yeah, it might not be the ideal answer to your question, but it's the truth, Rodney. I've just been lucky to go and invest in the right sponsor.
So, I mean, if we can just indulge us just a little bit more. I mean, mentoring is a big deal in the industry. We hear a lot about it from Security Industry Association and stuff. If I'm an emerging leader and I have what it takes to succeed, who am I looking for? What qualities do I look for in a mentor?
Well, prior success is probably a pretty important one because, whether it's the person's network or their ability to go in and refer you to other people that have already built a trust with that person. Because quite often, that person won't be able to provide you that particular opportunity at that particular moment, but they might have a network of people that they've built trust with that will follow, their advice. And therefore, if someone has reached the end of their success at a particular company, there's no other promotion for them to move into, then at least that person, hopefully if they've done good work for the person and the person's the right sponsor, they'll have a healthy network of people that respect them and trust their judgment to go ahead and pursue opportunities elsewhere. So again, I think I'm overly subscribing to the sponsorship and the choice of a mentor, but yeah, I again, for me, it's worked. I think for others, you're gonna need to go in and somehow do something really out of the ordinary to get the attention of someone that you haven't built a relationship with, or you're gonna have to do the hard work and establish yourself with that person, hoping that they're the right sponsor to go in and carry your message elsewhere, make you visible.
Don, thanks so much for joining us today, man. I've really enjoyed it. Really appreciate you sharing your insights and experiences. That wraps up this segment, and now I'll pass it back to my colleague, Sam.
Well, Rodney, thank you and Don for sharing with us your passion for the security industry as well as trends in the integration space. And thank you for tuning in. This podcast is your go-to source for staying ahead in the security industry. It offers sharp insights, real-time trends, and straight talk for industry professionals. It's built to keep you informed and empowered wherever you are. Stay connected, stay sharp, and maintain security at the forefront. To access our podcast lineup, go to podbean.com and search for SecurityDNA. You can also find our podcast on our Security Frontline, Integrator Newswire, and Security Week e-newsletters. For Rodney, Don, and everyone at Security InfoWatch, thank you for listening, and keep an ear open for our next podcast.